The first full-length live event of Fortnite Chapter 7 Shattered came in full swing, featuring no collabs, stacked with tons of lore, and an unexpected plot twist that Geno had been the visitor reality unknown all this time. I can say with absolute certainty that this event is one of the greatest Fortnite events of all time, and there were many hidden details and secrets that lots of people missed. So sit back, relax, and let's get right into the breakdown of the Shattered Live Event. How the event started depended entirely on the team you chose at the beginning of the season, Team Foundation or Team Ice King. Both teams had their unique cutscene that showed each side preparing for the final showdown at Dark Dominion.
My faithful arrive in waves. They are the most elite in my army.
The Dark Harvester is ready. With the last shard, the 0 point will be complete.
And our bargain.
The Foundation will be there.
My team and I will deliver the final shard.
Do not fail us, and the Foundation will be restored to your collection.
Excellent.
Well, right on time. Get ready. Tonight, we're taking the last 0 point shard.
And the orb's on its way to Ice King's fortress. Visitor, how's that shield buster of yours coming?
I'll have the device ready. Everything hinges on what we do.
Over at Frigid Fortress, the Ice King communicated to Dark Voyager through a hologram as the final battle drew closer. On the other side, the Foundation kept watch as Jones would monitor the arrival of the Dark Harvester, and the Visitor would modify his shield breaker. The Visitor requested from Jones to inform him right away the moment he received any information about the orb, which is just a shorter way for the team to address the Dark Harvester.
Jones, the moment you get any information, please let me know.
Gathering data now. I'll be able to send reports soon. So far, everything is clear.
Shortly after, the Dark Voyager locked into the final shard's coordinates and a golden rift formed right above it. The Visitor reiterated the team's plan once the Dark Harvester would arrive, and at the same time, the Dark Voyager shared that intel with the Ice King.
What is it now? Is the Dark Harvester taking the scenic route?
I have information.
Spill it then.
The moment the Dark Voyager arrives, the team must leave for the 0 point.
This is how you pull an all-time heist.
How did you get this?
Deliver the shard, and all will be revealed.
On the Foundation side, there were multiple important lore details on the monitor Jones was observing that the vast majority missed. Over on the right side were text lines from the script of the event that described scenes in great detail. But over on the left side was where the important information could be found, especially this paragraph which read, "The orb remains completely motionless at the center of the arena, yet every sensor detects violent movement from within its core. Dimensional coordinates continue shifting unpredictably, making destination tracking impossible." Now, why is this important? Well, beside the paragraph was an image of the Dark Harvester's golden rift with 4 reality numbers labeled on it. With that in mind, the text implied that the reason why there are so many reality numbers present on the golden rift was to make it difficult to track the Dark Harvester. The dimensional coordinates, aka the reality numbers, deliberately shifted unpredictably so the Dark Harvester would be impossible to follow. On another screen, we also saw 4 more reality numbers that were labeled on the tendrils of the 0 point. So in total, we received 8 reality numbers in this event. Back at Frigid Fortress, the Dark Voyager returned to update to Ice King that the powering of his ship was almost complete.
The powering of Dark Harvester is nearly complete.
I require the Foundation in one piece.
Rest assured, your payment will be delivered. In full.
This now explains why the Dark Harvester temporarily left the island from time to time, excluding the search for the 0 shards. The Dark Voyager had to ensure that his ship was constantly refueled to be able to efficiently complete the tasks assigned to him by his master. On the other side, the Foundation asked Jones for an update, and Jones revealed that lots of heat signatures had appeared over at Frigid Fortress, implying the Ice King had been gathering an army.
Jones, need an update.
I'm getting a lot of heat signatures near the fortress. Looks like Captain Ice King is gathering an army.
And we will be waiting at the 0 point, unseen.
The Dark Voyager had also taken note of this and informed the Ice King that his master was quite impressed.
You've gathered a formidable army. My master is impressed.
Who is this master? When will I meet them?
Careful. The only one you need to care about is me.
You are but a pawn in this.
If that is the case, what are you?
The Ice King grew curious and questioned Voyager about the identity of his master and when he'll meet them, but Voyager immediately cautioned him, essentially telling the Ice King it's none of his concern. Throughout the entirety of the pre-event, the Visitor was working on a shield breaker device that would be capable of destroying the Dark Harvester's shield, and Jones made sure to double check with Visitor if that was the case, which Visitor confirmed.
So, Visitor, just to get it straight, the shield buster will take out the Dark Harvester's defenses?
Precisely. Ice King thinks he's bringing the final shard, but really, he's just walking into our trap.
The Harvester's shields better hold, or your skull will be added to my vault.
You needn't worry about their plan. The outcome is inevitable.
The Dark Voyager proceeded to share that piece of intel to the Ice King as well, which concerned the King for a moment, but Voyager reassured the Ice King that there was no need for concern at all. Moments later, the Dark Voyager returned to speak with the Ice King, who had grown tired of waiting.
Dark Voyager, I've grown tired of waiting.
I have one final message.
I do not need to hear anything more from
Silence! The Foundation's team will arrive unseen, but not untouchable. Provoke him, and the Foundation is yours.
Watch closely. I tend to impress.
You misjudge what matters. There is only the 0 point. Everything else is irrelevant.
Voyager said he had one final message for the King, but the Ice King didn't want to hear it until he was cut off by the intimidating voice of Dark Voyager's master, Geno. Geno, otherwise known as Redacted during that time, had to temporarily intervene to ensure the Ice King would follow through with the plan. Geno told him that as long as he provoked the Foundation, the Ice King would have no problem restoring Foundation to his collection. Geno also made it clear to the Ice King that the only thing that matters is the 0 point, nothing else. The plan was clear and the bargain was set in stone. The shard would be brought to Dark Dominion and the Ice King would have the Foundation. As the final moments approached, Jones asked the Visitor how exactly to take down the Dark Harvester once its shields were down.
Visitor, once the shields are down, how exactly are we going to take down that orb?
Here, a surprise for you all. This cache holds the key to stopping the Dark Harvester.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Look at all this firepower!
The Visitor revealed that they'd utilize a cache full of 7 cannons to stop the Dark Harvester. At the same time, the Ice King decided he would no longer wait, and using the Infinity Blade, he summoned a blizzard upon the island to showcase his strength. The 7 acknowledged the blizzard, and moments later, the Dark Harvester had arrived. With the Dark Harvester present on the island, both teams made their way to the 0 point at Dark Dominion. The Foundation's team went in unseen to surprise attack the Ice King's army. Jones tried to come up with the code for the Foundation to signal the attack. Foundation told him to stop, but Jones told him he liked Porcupine the best.
Shopping cart. Porcupine. Bowling ball. What is that ridiculous mumbling? Foundation needs a code word to signal the assault.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do. Lawnmower.
Stop.
Sorry, can't help it. Kinda like Porcupine, though.
Jones.
As for the Ice King's team, they went in without hiding to display their might. As the Dark Harvester and the Ice King made it to the 0 point, the Foundation called upon the Ice King. The Foundation sought to negotiate with the Ice King one last time, but it was to no avail, and the Dark Harvester began to lower the final shard to the 0 point. Even though the Foundation was too embarrassed to admit it, he liked Jones's idea for a code to signal the attack and said porcupine, following it with a swear word directed at the Ice King as he fired the Visitor's shield breaker.
Porcupine, you son of a bitch.
However, right before he could finish swearing, the Foundation was cut off due to the shield breaker malfunctioning and shocking him, and the Ice King took the opportunity to attack. The Ice King also took the opportunity to rage bait the Foundation while he was dealing with his malfunction. Fortunately, the Foundation managed to tank the malfunction and toss the entire device at the shield of the Dark Harvester, causing it to collapse and leaving the ship vulnerable. The Foundation's team all fired at the tractor beam, lowering the Zero Shard, and successfully deactivated it, causing the shard to fall. While the Dark Voyager's plan was temporarily hindered, the Foundation and the Ice King began their final fight. While fighting the Ice King, the Foundation temporarily forgot about the 0-point shard, so Jones reminded him to grab the shard, but instead of securing it, the Foundation began to use the shard as a weapon against the Ice King, tossing it all over the place. Foundation managed to land some heavy blows against the Ice King, but the King still had a lot more left in him, and when the 0-point shard and Infinity Blade collided in battle, the Infinity Blade overloaded and slashed the entire island on an enormous scale. The slash was so powerful that you could actually even see space on the other side of it. Then we got a short cutscene of the Foundation fighting the Ice King, who struck the 0-point shard with his Infinity Blade. When the two crash landed at Dark Dominion, the Infinity Blade, which was impaled in the Zero Shard, overloaded, causing it to disintegrate into a bunch of rift butterflies and making the Zero Shard send out a small reality wave that pushed the Looper's soul out of their body. After taking a closer look and doing some digging, it turns out the Looper's soul reuses Geno's custom sculpted model from Collision, so I believe it's pretty much safe to say now that the 0-point showed us Geno's soul, which Stellan referred to as the Shapeless Man in Chapter 4 Season 1. As you can see, there is a drastic difference between the normal soul of a Looper in comparison to Geno's. The Looper has a light blue soul with res cubes and a mechanical light glowing center. Geno, on the other hand, has a dark, shapeless soul that's constantly distorting and has a burning gaze. This goes to show how pure evil Geno truly is and makes you wonder about all the unthinkable things he must have done for his soul to end up looking like that. Nevertheless, after the Looper's soul was pushed out of their body, we witnessed them possess either the Foundation or the Ice King, allowing the Looper to partially control one of them and give them a slight power boost. The canon version of this scene seems to be the Foundation side, given that it lines up with his raging personality during Season 2. This gave us another action-packed cutscene between the Foundation and the Ice King, where we saw the both of them go all out on one another.
You trapped me! Froze me! Now this ends with me!
In the end though, the Foundation's rage completely blinded him, and one wrong move ended up costing him the entire battle. The Ice King had won the rivalry, and the Foundation was frozen by him once again. While the two were busy fighting, the Dark Voyager escorted the final shard to the 0-point, which was essentially this entire season. Both the Ice King and the Foundation were too busy focused on their rivalry that all this time they didn't realize Dark Voyager was using their rivalry to his advantage. The Ice King approached Dark Voyager, likely intending on shaking hands and moving their separate ways, but Dark Voyager had different plans, and he struck the Ice King in the chest with his hand. The Ice King was devoured by the cubes and then obliterated, transforming Dark Voyager into his unleashed form. Yes, the Ice King is dead. To those who are skeptical about that, in the Chapter 6 finale, we watched the Red Cube take out the Dark Presence in a very similar manner, and the files themselves confirmed the Dark Presence died. Given that the Ice King and the Dark Presence went out in a similar fashion, it's safe to assume he's now dead. Can he somehow come back eventually? Yes, but for now he's dead, and we saw his body destroyed before our very eyes. I'm sure some of you are wondering though, what was the reasoning for Dark Voyager to kill the Ice King? There is an explanation for it that I'll get to in a bit. With the Foundation frozen and the Ice King dead, all the pieces were finally in place. The 0-point shards were finally together again, and using the power of the Chaos Cubes, Dark Voyager reassembled the 0-point. The Dark Harvester continuously pummeled the 0-point with a beam of Chaos Cube energy, forcing the orb to reorganize the matter of the island. although things began to get out of control and Jones was incredibly worried. We watched as Golden Coast Island transformed into Shattered Coast Island. However, the instability of the 0 point resulted in the new island to cycle through multiple different variants of itself in an enormous reality spinning wheel. The variants included the original island, a frozen variant, a volcanic variant, and a Halloween variant. Suddenly, a rift butterfly appeared, and we heard various ethereal voices as the butterfly approached us. After taking a better listen to the ethereal voices, I believe there were a total of 4 different voices that we heard. I believe the first 2 lines that said the 0 point, it knows my name, were Hope. The sinister laugh was most definitely Geno. The female voice that yelled run did not sound familiar to me, and I believe it may very well be the voice of the Reality Warriors leader. I'll dive into the importance of her in another video, but to put it simply, I believe the leader of the Reality Warriors is Geno's main rival. We know she's connected to him to a certain degree given that her statue could be seen front and center in the Imagined Order's war room, and she's an incredibly important character since there were dozens of statues of her all over the Reality Warriors bases in Chapter 4. Lastly, there was a female voice that said, "Find me," as the butterfly landed on the Looper's hand, who I personally believe to be the Imagined. Some have suggested it could be the Paradigm, and I think it's possible, but I'm mainly leaning towards Imagined because to me personally, her voice sounds the most similar to that line. With that being said, the Rift Butterfly came to help us as it dissolved into our hand and turned into the Infinity Blade, giving us a weapon capable of destroying the Dark Harvester. Using the power of the Infinity Blade, the Looper leaped straight towards the orb and cut directly through the spaceship, ending the ensuing chaos and revealing a new, reorganized Golden Coast Island. The Infinity Blade then once again disintegrated into Rift Butterflies and vanished, which I believe seems to imply that the weapon is now directly connected to the 0 point, and the 0 point gave us this weapon to help us stop the Dark Harvester. Speaking of, after we sliced the Dark Harvester, many missed a big detail that briefly appeared on screen when the ship began to fall. At the core of the Harvester was a full-sized Chaos Cube, revealing that this singular cube is what had been powering the entire spaceship all this time. After the event ended, a cinematic followed which revealed the true identity of the Visitor.
They've reformed the 0 point.
Yes. The mission has failed.
Our enemies were one step ahead of us the whole time. How is this possible? Incoming! We got a problem here.
Actually, everything is going according to plan.
What is this? Geno! It's been you all along?
The 7 may still prove useful to me. I fear the same cannot be said for you, Agent Jones.
What are your orders, Master?
To this moment, I still can't believe that cinematic is real. Geno is actually back in the storyline after 4 years and has finally made an in-game appearance for the very first time. I know a lot of people wanted to see my reaction to the reveal, so here it is.
Actually, everything is going according to plan.
No!
Evil Visitor is real?
It's... What? There's no way!
Unfortunately, my mic cut out, but I was screaming and yelling like crazy, especially when it was revealed that Dark Voyager's master is Geno. That's because ever since the start of Chapter 7, when the story so far cinematic was posted, I was already super suspicious about Geno's eyes getting an extra yellow glow in the cinematic. Then once it was revealed that Dark Voyager had a master, I immediately put all the pieces together and posted a theory about it over on my Twitter. Up until this moment, I was certain Voyager's master was Geno, and I was freaking out like crazy when my theory got confirmed. In case some of you don't know, Geno is my favorite Fortnite storyline character, so my excitement was through the roof. But with that aside, let's break the cinematic down. The cinematic began with Jones coming to terms with the failure of the Seven preventing the 0 point from being reassembled. Jones wondered how it was possible that their enemies were one step ahead of them this whole time, which is actually another hint and reference towards Geno being behind this all. That's because in Chapter 3 Season 2, Jones explained how someone was always one step ahead of the Imagined, who at the time was trying to reclaim her past.
That's it. The Imagined said she's sick of not knowing who she is. And every time she looks for answers, it's like someone is one step ahead of her.
Eventually, Jones learned that the person who was one step ahead of Imagined was actually her father, Geno. Moments later, the Dark Voyager arrived at their location and Jones was unable to do anything to him. Voyager simply stood there, and as Jones panicked, the Visitor suddenly shot him from behind, revealing himself to be a traitor and, in an even bigger plot twist, to be Geno himself. Jones was shocked and asked the question, "Geno, it's been you all along?" Which was actually another reference to Foundation's line in Collision where he said, "It's always been Geno."
Alright, I gotta ask. This whole total destruction thing just doesn't feel like Sloane to me. She does whatever it takes to win, but she's not a monster.
Sloane's never been in charge.
Hold on. Do you seriously mean that?
Geno. It's always been Geno.
Well, I told you I'd get you Geno, so you're welcome.
That being said, Geno's appearance wasn't the same as the one we saw in Zero War. Rather, he looked like his younger self, also known as the Ageless. But why? I personally believe the reason for this is because this isn't Geno's actual body. Let me explain. In Fortnite X Marvel Zero War issue number 5, we saw Geno appear for the second time, but that wasn't the first time we'd actually seen his human self. Back in Chapter 2 Season 7, there was a portrait of Geno shaking hands with Dr. Sloane. In the portrait, we saw Geno with a white hair strand, also known as poliosis. And prior to the release of Zero War issue number 5, the concept art of the Ageless was revealed in a Fortnite survey that also showed him with poliosis. However, out of all 8 pages that Geno was featured in during Zero War, not a single one showed him with poliosis. Yes, the Zero War comic series had some artistic inaccuracies, but given that Geno's poliosis is such an iconic trait of his as we've seen in the other variants of him, it's safe to assume that they deliberately did not include the poliosis in his hair. And I believe this was to tell us that Geno actually managed to remove that genetic imperfection which he's had all his life, implying to us as the readers that Geno has achieved absolute genetic perfection. In Zero War, Geno's hair was also shorter, he was more muscular, taller, he had light blue eyes, he looked more mature, and he had powers. The reason I'm bringing this up is because the Geno we saw in the event is none of that. His hair is longer, he's not that muscular, he looks more rough, he's shorter than the original Visitor, he has a scar on his face, his eyes are more gray, he has no powers from what we know, and his poliosis has spread even more on his hair. Already there's a major difference between Zero War Geno and Visitor Geno, but the differences don't even end there either. There is also a difference in their voices. When we heard Geno speak to the Ice King, the cadence of Geno's voice was slower, his tone was more intimidating, and his voice was a bit deeper. As for Visitor Geno, his voice sounds lighter, the cadence is faster, and his tone isn't as intimidating. Here's a comparison of their voices side by side.
Silence. The Foundation's team will arrive unseen, but not untouchable. Provoke him, and the Foundation is yours.
Jones, the moment you get any information, please let me know.
You misjudge what matters. There is only the 0 point.
The 7 may still prove useful to me.
Everything else is irrelevant.
You are not the order I expected to meet when I picked up your distress call.
And I don't believe Geno's voice is being altered because of the hologram, at least not too much when speaking to the Ice King. That's because Voyager's voice sounded the same both through the hologram and in person.
The Foundation is finished. You've played your part well, Ice King. The powering of Dark Harvester is nearly complete.
Another thing to note is that people who have heard Geno's voice before, such as the Order, the Foundation, and Jones, cannot recognize his voice. So if this isn't Geno's real body, then what's going on? I believe that Geno is possessing a snapshot of himself. This is because Geno prefers to remain hidden and pull the strings from the shadows. Collision was just a very rare exception so he could fake his death and go completely off the grid. But that's not my only proof for this. In the event, we saw the Looper possess either the Foundation or the Ice King, which was a very significant moment, and I don't believe this is a coincidence, but rather another hint of what's really going on with Visitor Geno. Another piece of evidence for this is we've seen Geno possess in the story before as the Shapeless Man. Geno possessed Rift Warden Stellan not in the sense of controlling his body, but torturing him in his mind and influencing his decisions so Stellan would construct the Rift Gate. Even Stellan's codename was Possession. Alright, let's say Geno is possessing a snapshot of himself then. I'm sure a big question on your minds right now is whether this is the Ageless from Chapter 4 or not. I personally believe there can be two options here. This is either not the Ageless from Chapter 4, which would explain why he looks older, or this is the Ageless from Chapter 4, but the reason he looks older is because the body is slowly deteriorating from being possessed. I personally prefer the latter theory because it would make the situation even darker. One last thing I believe is worth addressing is that in the cinematic, Visitor Geno is referred to as Geno. So wouldn't that mean that's the real Geno? No, and here's why. A snapshot is a duplicate the island makes of people when they escape the loop. So when that duplicate is created, they still have the same name and the same personality as the original. Therefore, when a snapshot is made of Geno, that snapshot is still referred to as Geno. The Ageless is only a title, not a real name. Just like Fishstick, for example. The real Fishstick died, but his snapshot is still referred to as Fishstick. So, to sum it up, I believe the Geno we saw in this event is a snapshot being possessed by the real Geno. I'm thinking we might see Geno in his real body towards the end of Chapter 7 or the Chapter 7 finale. Now with that explained, the cinematic ended with the major reveal that Dark Voyager's master is in fact Geno. If you remember, earlier I said there's a reason why Dark Voyager betrayed the Ice King, and Geno being his master is the reason why. In Zero War issue number 4, we learned from Jones that the Imagined Order always wondered what happened to the Ice King and that he raised a bunch of hell on the island during Chapter 1. He caused a ton of chaos, which Geno ordered Dark Voyager to use to their advantage throughout Season 2. However, once the Ice King finished playing his part, the Zero Point was reassembled and Foundation was frozen once again, the Ice King would be too dangerous of a liability to keep around, which is ultimately why the Dark Voyager killed him. Although I'm sure many of you are wondering, why is Geno working with the Dark Voyager and how is he connected to the last reality? I have a theory that I believe explains all of that, so make sure to stay tuned for my next video about Geno, which will cover Geno's story so far and his connections to the last reality. The last thing I want to point out is how much of a sociopathic liar Geno is. After revealing his true identity as Visitor Reality Unknown to Jones, he claimed Jones wouldn't be useful to him, and yet we see that wasn't true at all as he chose to keep Jones alive, who is currently in the process of recovering. In new dialogue from Geno, he even taunts and mocks Jones. Geno always knows what he's doing. Everything is calculated. By heavily injuring Jones, Geno added another worry on top of the Seven's plate that will continue to keep them distracted and occupied while he continues to make his moves. I'm so excited to see where the story will go from here, especially now that Geno is back in the storyline. And that wraps it up for my lore breakdown of the Fortnite Shattered Live Event. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one, Lore Keepers.